Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's lecture. Today, we're going to be looking at aquatic ecosystems. And the big thought question, the focus question that you should be thinking about is what are some examples and or characteristics of aquatic communities? The vocabulary that you'll need to answer that question include sediment, littoral zone, limnetic zone, plankton, profundal zone, intertidal zone, pelagic zone, that's a hard one, photic zone, aphotic zone, abyssal zone, benthic zone, wetlands, and estuaries. All great terms, so hopefully you'll find one that you like. So salinity is hopefully a review vocabulary for you, and it refers to the amount of salt that is dissolved in water. I have some salt crystals here to try to visualize that, because one of the primary characteristics of aquatic ecosystems is how much salt is in the water. So the planet is composed primarily, at least on its surface, of water. As much as 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered with water, but only a very small percentage of the Earth's surface is fresh water, right? So you have a lot of ecosystems on Earth that are water or aquatic ecosystems, and they can be divided broadly speaking into saltwater ecosystems and freshwater ecosystems. Now, our main freshwater ecosystems include things like streams, lakes, ponds, and rivers, and tend to be characterized by both fresh water and water that is moving. Okay? Plants and animals that live in these types of environments tend to be adapted to some sort of current or flow of water, and they are adapted to having low concentrations of salt. So they have biological mechanisms that will retain sodium and chlorine, sodium chloride ions, that's what salt is, within the organism, and prevent that from being lost because there's so little of it in the environment. So river and streams ecosystems, these are characterized again primarily by the movement of water. And if you notice, if you've ever looked at a stream or a lake, as a stream or a river bends, turns around a bend, there's actually a point where it slows down because of the water changing direction. And it's in these bends where you tend to find most of your aquatic plants and fish that live in a river. In the portion of the river where the water is flowing rapidly, the portion of the stream where the water is moving rather quickly, you tend to find only migratory organisms that are moving from one slow place to another. They don't tend to live in that region, though there are some specialized, like snails, that can kind of glue themselves to rocks and filter feed in these regions. They're the kind of exception and not the rule. Now, an important characteristic of organisms that live in rivers and streams is their ability to withstand the constant water current, right? They have to be able to swim or grip into the soil with a sufficient degree of strength to not be swept away by the water. And again, that's going to be really important when you're looking at these types of ecosystems. Now, lakes and ponds tend to be the inland version of where rivers and streams go to. A pond is relatively shallow, but it's a collection of water that is either not moving or is moving very slowly, maybe leaking out a dam somewhere. And a lake is going to be much larger and can be much deeper. Okay, but it's again fresh water and characterized by not a lot of movement. Lakes and ponds are divided into three zones. The zones are illustrated on the slide next, or the next slide. So these three zones are have to do with their access to light and how deep the zone is, and also determine the types of organisms that you find in a lake or a pond. And so the littoral zone is going to be the zone closest to the coastline. This is where you're going to find most of your aquatic plants, and a lot of your fish are going to live hidden in those plants in this area. Further out into the middle, you have what's called the limnetic zone, which is all of the region in the open water that's pretty shallow where the light can still penetrate in. And here you'll get a lot of photosynthetic single-celled organisms, plankton, that can live here. And so filter feeders can eat on those. But usually fish don't stay in this area very long because they're exposed to predators that can see them from above, and they're not protected by the plants like they are at the coastlines. And then finally, you have the profundal zone of a lake or a pond, which is the very bottom. It tends to have bottom feeders, crustaceans like crawdads or certain types of freshwater crabs and crustaceans that hide in the darkness and feed off of dead things that fall to the bottom. You can also get some large fish that live in this area and then surface periodically to feed, so that's a possibility as well. And that is all I have for the first part of this lecture. Hopefully this is giving you some ideas about how scientists describe aquatic ecosystems. We'll get to our saltwater counterparts in the next lecture. Thanks for listening.